Good evening. That portrait bronze of Sir William Walton by Elizabeth Frink introduces tonight's birthday tribute. The next Tuesday, Sir William Walton will be 75 years old. To mark the occasion, BBC Television invited Andre Previn and the London Symphony Orchestra to perform in our studios Walton's First Symphony. Last Wednesday in Omnibus, we showed Previn's rehearsal of the symphony. Tonight, in the Lively Arts, we have the performance itself. But first of all, we wanted to give you a hint, at least, of the achievement of William Walton as a composer overall, and a taste also what he's like as a man, in particular his attitude to the job of being a composer. Now, he's not the most eloquent of musicians, in words at least, but we have been digging away in the BBC's film archives, as you already have seen from that opening fanfare from Facade, conducted by the composer, and we've also selected sequences from 3 or 4 works which are absolutely central to Walton's output and help to explain why his music is so deeply loved, and thus why we have such a very great deal to thank him for on his 75th birthday. And the first of these characteristics, it seems to me, is his sense of humour and his wit, which was apparent from the earliest days. He wasn't even 21 when he wrote Facade, wrote it in a breathtaking few weeks, and 50 years of age and custom haven't staled or withered its infinite variety. Here are Hermione Gingold and Russell Oberlin reciting the Tango Pasodoble.
When Don Pasquito arrived at the seaside, where the donkey's high tide braid, he saw the bandito Joe in a black cape, whose slack shape waved like the sea.
Titus wrote a treatise noting me to silver like the sea. The lovely cheatess whose former wrote notices that she will steal the wheat king's luggage like Babel. Before the League of Nations grew, so Joe put the luggage and the label in the pocket of Flo the kangaroo. Through trees like rich hotels that bode of dreamless ease fled she, carrying the load and gulling the road to the marine scene to the sea. Don Pasquito, the road is eloping. With your luggage so heavy and large, you must follow and leave your moping. Ride to my guidance and charge.
When Don Pasquito returned from the road's end, where vanilla-colored ladies ride, from Sevilla his mantilla'd bride and young friend were forgetting their mentor and guide, for the lady and her friend from the Touquet, in the very shady trees upon the sand, were plucking a white satin bouquet of foam of the sands Brasiban. And voila, in the heat, Don Pasquito hid where the leaves drip with sweet, but words stung him like a mosquito, for what they hear, they repeat.
Half a century on from Facade, Walton lives now on the Mediterranean island of Ischia. His terraced villa is set in a lovely garden which he and his wife Susanna have created out of a wilderness. About Facade, a work which has given so much pleasure over the last 50 years, Walton was typically unforthcoming.
Facade for me was a persiflage, really. I didn't really think anything about it at all, to be quite honest. And I was rather against doing it, And of course, then one happens to do something very good by mistake, which is, I think, the best way of doing things, really.
Mistake it may have been, but pure inspiration nonetheless. Apart from the speed of its creation, Facade is also a landmark for the witty virtuosity which Walton and Edith Sitwell displayed in their unique entertainment. Actually, there were nearly twice as many numbers in the original Facade. This one, hitherto unpublished, and several more were premiered yesterday by Richard Baker at the English Bach Festival. Facade went on to independent life as orchestral suites, as piano duets arranged by Constant Lambert, and most popular of all, as a ballet by Frederick Ashton. This is the John Piper backdrop for a 1942 Facade performance, and here now are Moira Shearer and Sir Frederick Ashton himself in the Tango Pasodoble. With Facade and the works which followed, Siesta, Portsmouth Point, the Sinfonia Concertante, Walton soon stood out as the white hope of young English composers, and he was largely self-taught.
I wanted to have lessons from various people, and I don't know whether I should have been better with them or without them. See, there are much better teachers nowadays than there were when I was a teachable age. And that's true of everything about music. Because, you see, there was a great difficulty of earning one's living, or not one's living, one just gave that up, but any money at all for music, unless, especially if you could only write music, not play. I was in that unlucky category of not being able to play any instrument. And naturally, I didn't make very much, because my first works, like Portsmouth Point and Facade, all that, they weren't playable, really. They took too much rehearsal time. And the conductor had to learn to do his 5/8 bars. They weren't very good at that. Made them cross that I could do it, and they couldn't.
Another facet of Walton's musical personality came to the fore in his Viola concerto of 1929. It was an intense and deeply romantic gift for melody. Walton himself conducted this performance at the Royal Festival Hall with Yehudi Menuhin. Walton was born in Oldham, the son of a singing teacher. As a boy chorister, he went to Christ Church, Oxford, and this was crucial to his musical development, because here he learnt the choral tradition from the inside, gathering the experience which created another element in his musical style, the ability to write for voices, both solo and in choirs. His operas, his Coronation Te Deum and his Gloria all bear witness to his sensitive response to the English language, a gift which was first displayed on the grand scale in Belshazzar's Feast, an oratorio prompted by Edward Clarke of the BBC.
And he really suggested that I should write a piece for the broadcasting on a subject that everybody knew about. Well, actually, it sounds simple to find a subject that everybody knows about. It isn't really. And I talked to Hospital about it, and he suggested Belshazzar's Feast, the writing on the wall, which is a fairly universal subject, I should have thought.
It was first given in Leeds.
In Leeds, at the town hall. I was there, terrified, I must say. It sounded like nothing on earth, I thought.
What did the audience think?
Well, they were sort of mesmerised into accepting it, I thought. There must be something very peculiar about it.
But I gather there was some objection not only to the difficulty of the work, but to the fact that it was irreligious.
Oh, yes, that was in the Three Choirs Festival. I mean, it's only in the last, I don't know, in the last 2 years or so that it's been accepted in the Three Choirs Festival. Because it's both a bit barbarous and barbaric and
it's very ironic.
Indecent. I don't quite forgotten why it was indecent. I'd like to think it was.
moment from Belshazzar's Feast, performed by the Halley Orchestra and Chorus under O.I. Narwhal Hughes. Belshazzar established Walton in the public eye.
Belshazzar was a sort of big breakthrough. But even then, you see, one didn't make me any money. Belshazzar, £50 a year was how much I'd get out of the Oxford Press. And the first break was that and Escape Never, the films.
That was a feature film?
Yeah, that was with Elizabeth Bergner. And that gave me an entirely different view of life. I mean, that about 10 days' work and got paid much more than I ever made in a year.
Elizabeth Bergner was also in Walton's next film, As You Like It. Co-starring was Laurence Olivier, with whom Walton was to establish an historic artistic partnership. And that collaboration is another facet of Walton's musical personality, his sense of drama, his ability to get under a film director's creative skin and provide exactly what the film needed without compromising on the quality of the music. Henry V was written at the end of the war. Hamlet followed in 1947 with Olivier and Gene Simmons, and Richard III in 1955. The clip we're going to see from Richard III shows how in just a few seconds Walton could create with music a precise atmosphere. In this case, the agonizingly indecisive mood of the King's supporters on Bosworth Field. Walton has always been a great traveller, and in the post-war years he was also a composer's committee man, sent abroad by the British Council and the Performing Rights Society. In 1947 he went to Buenos Aires in the Argentine, and there he met someone who was to become a very important influence on him.
And who should I see? Rather attractive girl over in the corner there. And of course, one of the journalists asked him, what do you think about Argentine girls? So I nearly said, do you see that girl over there? I'm going to marry her. I just controlled myself in time, actually, luckily. But anyhow, we went off to lunch. I did propose to her the next day. And she said, don't be ridiculous, Dr. Walton, you see.
First of all, I thought that he was drunk, because he said he wanted to marry me the evening of the afternoon he'd met me. So it followed that a man of his age could not decide over a glass of wine that he wants to marry a girl. And he didn't even know if I could speak his language.
So he was 45 already at the time, wasn't he?
Yes, he was certain age. And then he convinced me in a short period of 2 or 3 weeks that he was the right person to live with forever.
They played my coronation march.
Soon after their marriage, the Waltons left London and settled in Ischia. They built a house on the site of an old olive grove, sweet in the summer evenings with a scent of myrtles. They call it La Mortella. It was in Ischia that Walton wrote his second coronation march, Orb and Scepter, and the second symphony, the cello concerto, the orchestral partita, and his two operas. And it was in Ischia that he recuperated from an almost fatal car crash. And here too that Lady Walton nursed him back to health after a major operation for lung cancer. Nowadays, he suffers from a mysterious illness which makes it difficult for him to get about. Composing has always been an arduous task.
I'm really in misery when I'm writing. I can't see, I can't put the notes in the right place. It's a tough job, even for those who are much more talented than I am. And there are several, I'm sorry to say, who are very much more talented than I am. I'm very good, actually, on my own. But once I do start working, I stick to bloody
He's
thing.
very disciplined. He works very hard. At least he's in his music room. I don't know what he does there, but he stays there.
Yeah.
Well, what he was doing in his music room 23 years ago was completing his first opera, Troilus and Cressida, with a libretto by Christopher Hassel. When this film was taken, he just completed rewriting the score so that the original soprano part of the heroine, Cressida, could be sung by the mezzo, Janet Baker. She it was who recreated the title role at Covent Garden last year with Richard Castley as Troilus. It's a part which Dame Janet feels is one of the very greatest roles written in the 20th century. The EMI recording from the Covent Garden performances will be released shortly. Here's a moment from the second act. It's our last musical illustration, and it's one to remind us of Walton's glorious gift for romantic and passionate melody. Lawrence Foster conducts the Royal Opera House Orchestra at the haunted end of the day. When Troilus and Cressida was first produced in 1954, Walton found himself facing a new set of critics. And for a final quotation from the archives, here are his characteristically sardonic memories of that critical response to Troilus.
They really got their knives out, because there's a new set of young critics that arrived in the time. See, Ernest Newman wrote it up. That was about the last time he sort of went to the opera, more or less. And so I got the old world pro me and the new world was against me, really, what happened. And it did a irreparable harm, actually. For a long time, about now I'm sort of settled down again. Old age is upon me, and they won't be rude, I expect they will, but still. But that's the way it happened. And it was all rather sad.
When you say irreparable harm, do you mean it hurt you in terms of not wishing to compose again?
Yes, rather. Mm-hmm. And I just felt that I couldn't catch up with the young boys ahead, you know. But then the young boys ahead didn't seem to be so good after all when they came. They staggered on the wayside before they got half as far as I'd got.
Sir William Walton talking on the island of Ischia in his 75th year. Well, earlier this month, Walton came back to England to attend some of the special concerts laid on to celebrate his 75th birthday. At the Royal Festival Hall, he was given a standing ovation, to which he responded in characteristic self-deprecating manner by clapping the London Philharmonic Orchestra and Sir George Solti, who'd just been raising the roof with Belshazzar's Feast. Well, we're going now to hear another roof-raising piece, the First Symphony. If you saw the Omnibus programme last week, you'll have heard a good deal about the work already. It was hailed as a masterpiece from its first performance in 1935, that it is, according to the composer, an account of a very tempestuous love affair.
Thank you.